Wow, we've got some really interesting things to talk about today. CPU, GPU, RAM, pricing, Xbox SKUs, and more. And the most frightening thing about this leak, quote unquote, is that I know for a fact that this document had at least one of these things right, and I've been unable to talk about it until now. What is going on, guys? It's Steeler here, back again, and we have one hell of a leak for all Xbox fans that are looking forward to the next iteration of their console in 2020. Not only that, anybody who is interested in tech at all, or pretty much interested in how Microsoft are going to do their multi-SKU approach. Now I'm going to start this off by letting you know that if you're not interested in hearing why I think particular parts of this could be very legitimate, and why I'm actually really surprised to see a certain thing in this document, you might want to skip ahead to around the 3 minutes 45 second mark. There's a lot of context in this video, there's a lot of information in this video, and there is a lot of explanation in this video. After all, you guys know I don't make videos this long unless I have to. So if you just want the raw information, go ahead and skip ahead. The rest of you that want full significance here, let's get started. Now, if you guys remember back in June of 2018, Brad Sams let leak that there is a little streaming box that Microsoft are working on, and they were planning on releasing this little $150 streaming box along with their traditional Xbox 2 console in 2020. Well, I made a video about that, and at the back half of that video, I theorized that maybe they would release more than just a streaming box. Maybe they will release two traditional style consoles, one of them perhaps around the same power of the X, and of course, one being 10 to 12 teraflops. Both of these boxes would have Ryzen APU cores at their center, giving them much more capability than modern consoles. I'll actually link that video down below. And once you guess it, about 5 months after that video comes out, Brad Sams then leaks that they are working on two traditionally powered Xbox 2 consoles, one of them being an S-type variant and one of them being an X-type variant, being significantly faster than the former. These two boxes would serve two different sets of people at two different price points. And the reason I have to do a quick recap here is because there are always new people learning about the situation with the next Xbox. This has never been done before. Multiple SKUs of next generation consoles on day one, not with different hard drive sizes, but with different levels of performance. These are two traditionally powered consoles, and we've gotten some leaks on these consoles. Now, I know some of you, of course, are going to be like, well, these leaks are fake, and yes, they very well could be educated guesses. But something caught my eye, something I've not been able to specifically talk about until now. As I've discussed before, sometimes I'm told things in confidence behind the scenes, and I will not talk about them in videos unless someone else leaks that information first. Then it's fair game. That's where this now deleted document comes in. Don't get me wrong, I was actually going to cover this whether or not this one detail was present on this sheet. But now that it is, this is extremely interesting to me. No one else had talked about this. I was told this by a few people that I trust after I released my video back in June 2018, but publicly this was nowhere. It's the same people that I trust, the same sources that I use. It's the reason Xbox Dynasty did an article on me. I've leaked a lot of things thanks to these people. This random Reddit post then appears and is magically deleted soon after with some of the same information that I was told by reliable sources, making this way more interesting. So with full context, for those that care, this is why I'm even more intrigued by this. As I just said, this is the Reddit post that was then deleted with full spec pricing SKU information on the next generation Xbox. Now there's a particular part of this page that caught my attention and made me think that at the very least, this guy knows somebody. Now, as I've said before, take all of this with a giant football-sized grain of salt until it is confirmed, but let's go over the specs. Next Xbox streaming, codename Lockhart. This is the low-end Xbox. Says here, and this is significant, targeting $249. Now, behind the scenes, we have been discussing $299. That is not far off. At the end of the day, they are coming in extremely competitive with this model. The power output makes perfect sense, and if they manage to provide a Ryzen-powered 2020 Xbox at $250 or even $299, that is insanely competitive. Like I said, this could be a target, this could be a guess, but I do not think it's far off either way. This is the really interesting one, the GPU of the Xbox Lockhart, the low-end Xbox. After all, that's what the document got right. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the power target for Lockhart, the low-end Xbox, is lower than that of the Xbox One X. I was told months ago, and I can finally talk about it. Custom Navi, AMD's next-generation architecture at 4+ teraflops. People I trust have hinted to me that it is actually lower than 5 teraflops. First, it was around 5 teraflops. The next person I talked to hinted that it might be lower. Once more, nothing confirmed, but this is the closest thing I've seen to anyone else talking about Lockhart performance, and wouldn't you know it, it's around where these people were hinting. Yes, it is weaker than the Xbox One X, but it is also substantially cheaper. You allow many more people to buy into your ecosystem, and the software is what makes them money. Let me know down below what you think they're going to be able to do here. Is it even possible? For my money, around $300, yes, it is. So with 4 teraflops, like I said, you're looking at PlayStation 4 Pro performance for around $300. But unlike the Pro, this will be using next generation Navi, so it should be more efficient. It should be better, even at the same performance target. That is a solid 1080p console in 2020. Keep in mind, you're paying such a cheap price for this thing. What do you expect? It is so much more capable in its year than the Xbox One or PS4 was, and it is significantly cheaper than both at launch, if of course these prices are to be believed. Now keep in mind that according to my very own theory, I was saying that the Lockhart power specs would be around 6 to maybe 7 teraflops. That was just my prediction on my theory back in June 2018. And I thought it might be the same or slightly more power than the X because I thought they were targeting a higher price point. Turns out Microsoft are doing something smarter. They're actually delivering a lower power GPU than I initially expected for ultra competitive prices. As I said earlier, I was told this months ago. This is why I backed off of the 6 to 7 teraflops number and said somewhere around Xbox One X levels from that point forward. Either way, very interesting stuff going on here with the GPU. I cannot wait to see how this turns out. Next up, the CPU is a custom 8-core, 16-thread CPU. It has already been leaked in the past to be using Zen 2 according to some reputable people. That will be AMD's newer architecture here soon. But the surprising thing on the CPU end is the 8-core 16-thread, meaning this console will be using SMT, simultaneous multi-threading. 8 physical cores, 8 virtual cores, 16 threads. It's basically the best way to get similar performance or 16-core-ish performance for much lower cost and power. Ultimately, it's a great thing for gamers if this happens. And for the low-end Xbox to actually have an 8-core 16-thread variant, that's surprising. You would think they would disable SMT or cut some of the cores down or something at a price point of $249, more realistically probably $299. Either way, if it really is 16 threads, that is a monster and actually really crazy for that price point. With or without 16 threads, it's still going to be utilizing a Ryzen APU. It's going to run circles around any current generation console's CPU. Next up is the memory of the system, 12 gigabytes of GDDR6. This one is up for debate. After all, at 1080p, do you need 12 gigabytes, likely what is 9 available gigabytes for games? I'm not exactly convinced of now, but keep in mind that in 2 years, games could naturally use more RAM. 12 gigabytes may be what they need to have to make this thing last another 5 to 7 years after launch. Once more, it's all up in the air. Now, the storage I am not convinced of. Some are convinced that it may be a 1 terabyte SSD or NVMe somehow, largely due to the fact that the dev kit, the Xbox Danta dev kit, is using this 1 terabyte SSD solution. But I will remind those same people that the Xbox One X dev kit used a 1 terabyte SSD as well. That was not found in the Xbox One X itself. It retained a custom 5400 RPM drive that overhead modifications to increase speed, up to 60 megabytes per second from 40. While I do think the Lockhart will have something much faster than a 5400 RPM drive, potentially a 7200 RPM drive, but I do not see a 1 terabyte SSD solution in this thing for around $300. I would be astounded if they pulled that off. But for all we know, this guy could be listing Lockhart dev kit specs. It does say DirectX ray tracing. I do not believe this will be a used feature on the low-end Xbox either. I do not think 4 to 4.9 teraflops is enough to really have enough overhead to use ray tracing effectively. You're already going to be running a lot of games at 1080p. Keep in mind that this isn't the PC's version of ray tracing. This will be a more rudimentary version that is optimized for consoles. But for the base model to have this or use it seems a little crazy, but who knows? Next up, the big boy, Xbox One X, aka Xbox Anaconda. This is the code name for the high-end Xbox, the one that I will be purchasing. By the way, let me know if you'll be getting one of these, and which one will you be getting, the more powerful, expensive one or the cheaper one? Now it says here it's got the same custom 8-core, 16-thread CPU. This is something that I think you would find in a higher-up, more premium console at what says here $499, which does make sense in the year 2020. Once again, I must stress how impressive it is to have a 16-thread CPU in a console. That is a monstrous amount of compute on any kind of Ryzen APU. That is very impressive if they actually do pull this off. It is much easier to believe 8-core 8-thread over 8-core 16-thread, but once again, if they do this, it is very impressive on any of these systems. Otherwise, the GPU is another custom Navi at 12 plus teraflops. That's the good stuff right there. More importantly, with 12 teraflops, you now have enough overhead to actually take advantage of that DirectX 12 ray tracing, and as I've explained, AMD have already confirmed that they are working on ray tracing for future architectures. Games that run at 4K 60, even 1440p 60, could easily do ray tracing, at least in the way that I've explained it to be done in previous videos, at either 1440p 60 or 1080p 60. Just give players an option. It's not something that has to be forced onto you. It says here that it will have 16 gigabytes of RAM, the same GDDR6. This is the amount of RAM that I have previously speculated on. Thinking about it, if games are still going to be at 4K, this means that developers are really going to start being more VRAM heavy or game RAM heavy on consoles, and they're going to start taking advantage of some of this overhead with the RAM. Maybe they'll start implementing better textures. We know they will. These technologies get better every single year, let alone over the course of 6 or more years. So 16 gigabytes of RAM, while not necessary today on something like an Xbox One X, come 2025 and further may be needed for the resolutions and technology something like Xbox Anaconda is actually going to be pushing. Now in this system, we have heard about very, very fast storage solutions. As a matter of fact, Phil Spencer has referenced performance and boot up times, load times, these improvements as being two major things that he sees with next-gen consoles. Meaning, hey, more 60 frames per second games, that's amazing. And of course, faster load times. Faster load times are taken care of by faster storage solutions. We then hear about an engineering job working on next generation storage solutions, and the rumors keep suggesting that at least the high-end Xbox Anaconda will come equipped with some kind of SSD. What I will say is at $500 it is much more likely to have an SSD than the Xbox Lockhart. So let me know what you guys think down below. Sorry this video was so long, but there was just no getting around it. Every single time one of these leaks hits or anything about the next consoles come out, I get 100 DMs over the course of that week, and of course they're all asking me questions that I can just address in a video, or they're just asking for my thoughts on the matter. Love to talk about it, love the support, but unfortunately that means that I've got to give my complete thoughts, and that takes a lot of time. Also, if you didn't notice, there are PlayStation 5 specs on this list as well, but I've got a different idea for a video regarding those. That video is definitely coming. Once more, let me know what you guys think down below. Love seeing the feedback. This video took forever to put together. They always do. I don't just throw footage in and just talk. I do a lot of editing. It takes a lot of time. So once more, if you enjoyed the video, if you learned something here today, if you enjoyed the discussion, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Share it. That helps even more. And of course, subscribe if you are are into this kind of stuff. Love learning about the tech. Have any questions, reach out to me on Xbox Live at ii_dealer_ii. Follow me on Twitter at dealer_gaming. My DMs are always open. And of course, check out my backlog for even more information on what we have so far on these new systems. I'm Dealer. I'm out.